Avenue, and then with the intention of joining Confederation Trail, but then we were obviously immediately faced with the perils of crossing University Avenue. Mm-hmm. And, considering the fact that the University of PEI is in the process, I think the slow process perhaps, of constructing a connector between Confederation Trail and the University Avenue at about that area, and given that Hermitage Creek Trail's immediately on the other side, it seems like one of the pieces of connective tissue, I guess, that if we refer back to Josh Underhay's map and vision for what cycling in Charlottetown would look like, I think he placed a lot of emphasis on kind of joining up the resources we already have. Sure. And so I think having a safe way for pedestrians and people in wheelchairs, people on bicycles, of crossing University Avenue sounds like a good idea. And so you and I had a chat about it, and I suggested the logical next step would be for you to come and talk about your idea further to this group.
Well, thank you, Peter. I think what motivated me to bring the idea forward was when we were having the deliberations and discussions regarding the new residents at UPEI. I asked the question, what is the plan for vehicle traffic, because there's going to be an intense amount of traffic, Belvedere Avenue, University Avenue, and I asked, I think it was Jackie Podger, Vice President for Finance, what's the plan, and she indicated that there's a plan throughout the entire campus for a revised vehicle routes, and then she mentioned the new road that they're going to construct near the alumni building. So I saw that as an opportunity to float the idea of an underground pedway. I thought it would make a lot of sense, considering at that particular intersection, as you know, there's been a number of accidents and near misses. It's very dangerous trying to get across University Avenue down in that hollow. And why not be proactive and put the necessary infrastructure in place? Sure, there's a cost, but I think the costs in comparison to the near misses and future fatalities is well worth it. So when I brought the issue forward at our public planning meeting, which we did virtually, she took note of it. Then I brought it up again when we passed the resolution, and I brought the issue forward again. So as a result of that, the media picked up on it, including CBC. And once CBC picked up on it, I received a phone call from the Minister of Transportation and Public Works, the Honorable Stephen Myers. So Myers liked the idea and wants to pursue it. So where it stands right now is, as you know, the House is still sitting. So I'm waiting for the opportunity to have a discussion with Mr. Myers. Once the House closes and this time becomes a little more flexible, so we can have that discussion. But I can tell you he's very enthusiastic about the idea. I think the three partners would be obviously the University of Prince Edward Island, City of Charlottetown, and the province of Prince Edward Island. And so far, that's where it is right now. So I don't know if that's a help or it gives you a bit of an insight, but I'm willing to discuss the idea even further.
I think the other thing that comes to mind is it's not only the University of PEI, but if you think about the other side of that street, there's students going to Charlottetown Rural, there's students going to Royalty Center, there's the other tenants at Royalty Center. There's people who live on that side between there and North River Road. There's public transit. I've taken the bus number 1 up and gotten off by the alumni building, the Mark's Work Warehouse building there, and I know from personal experience that cars are often not, because it's a 4-lane pedestrian crossing, cars are often not paying attention. And even if one car stops, another car will come along on the right-hand side beside them. So
I think your point's well taken. It's not just for the student body or the faculty or administration of the University of Prince Edward Island, or the community groups that go to Cary, the Bell Center. As you accurately pointed out, you have the students at Charlottetown Rural High School, that student body. You have the House of Sport. There's a lot of residents living in apartments in through that area, and I think they would certainly welcome the opportunity to be able to, whether it's walking or you're in a wheelchair or any type of transportation, would welcome that opportunity to do so in a very safe and secure manner, which does not exist now. And what I'm hoping for from the discussion with your group here today, Peter and Ryan and other members of the committee, is that you'll embrace the idea and maybe even send an email off to the minister saying that, we'd like you to pursue it even further and open up the deliberations and the discussions and to see what it would take to make this a reality. I believe the time is right now because they haven't started the construction on that road into the campus near the alumni building. So it's a great opportunity and the timing is right. And why not take full advantage of it?
Mitch, just on that, I drove by there on my bicycle about 2 weeks ago. It's Joanne McCrae speaking. And
Hi,
there
Joanne.
is some sort of construction going on down in the hollow behind the alumni building. Do you know what that is?
Well, that could be the start of the new road that they're constructing. Maybe they're doing some preliminary work. I'm not 100% sure. I can check that.
And my second question is, if that is a new road, I don't recall for sure, if I saw it in the Guardian, saying that road wouldn't be accessible to University Avenue. It was only meant to go from the alumni building to other parts of campus. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe so. I think they're looking to line up the intersection. I stand to be corrected, but I think they're looking to line up the intersection with Edmund Crescent, or the next street up.
Sure.
As you get closer.
So I'm not just sure what this is, if it's an accessory road or what they were doing down there with diggers or payloaders.
Yeah.
And is the idea this will all connect to Confederation Trail somehow?
Yes, that's one of the features. But I think what it's the primary goal is to have it connect to the university, so that students from the university can use that as a safe venue, as well as Peter pointed out earlier, the people from the Edmund Crescent community, which includes Charlottetown Rural and all those other amenities. I mean, you have the Public Service Alliance building, which is right there. I've talked to them a number of occasions about the near misses and accidents that have taken place there. They see it on a daily basis.
Sure. I don't know if everyone can see that file that I've just shared, but
Okay.
That's a screenshot from the UPI Short Range Master Plan.
Yeah.
And on the top of that graphic, you see the Confederation Trail running along the top, and then on the bottom is University Avenue.
Yes.
And then you see the field house there, and then the Murphy Center, etc. So I think that maybe, Joanne, what you were seeing there is evidence of that trail construction, or whether it's road or trail construction, but it's that loop I'm wondering about.
Yes, excuse me, because I think we talked about that tentatively. There might have been some indication from the university that Confederation Trail would be connected to the university with access to University Avenue. That's something that this committee would strongly welcome, because that's another connector, right?
Yeah, and a real good connector. But I think, Peter, you talked about it earlier from an active for transportation perspective. I know there's been some discussions with the university to try to ensure that would become part of that road. But now this is another new feature, the underground pedway, that proposal, which to my mind not only reinforces it, but takes it to another level. So I think it's a great opportunity. I really do. And I think we need to seize that opportunity. We need to act now. And hopefully this house will close soon so we can get down to business.
This photo that I've shared here, this is, if you imagine going north along the Confederation Trail side of UPI. You go through the maintenance yard that's on one side of the field there, and you kind of hang a left. If you imagine right now, you're looking directly at University Avenue from a cleared area there at, I think, what the beginnings of the clearing for the trail was. And this is a photo I took last summer. So.
Okay.
There is
Jason White here. Just I know this is an awesome proposal, and I'm really looking forward to it. I was just wondering. I know in one of our previous meetings we had talked about kind of linking up some of the existing trails, and this brings up a really good opportunity to get us across University Avenue. Do we know what the price tag might be for this?
That's a good question. You know what? I'm not really sure. I mean, you hear different figures. We won't really know till we sit down with the minister and have the three parties come together and look at what the cost for the infrastructure would be. But I think it'll be shared three ways, and there's infrastructure dollars in place for transportation that could help make this a reality. So, you know, the cost, whether it's, let's say it's $1 million or let's say it's 1.5, I'm not really sure. But
the reason why I ask, I'm just wondering because the other spot that could really use a pathway underneath the road is out by the RCMP barracks across those 4 lanes of traffic to link into the Upton Farm.
Yeah.
And if I didn't know if it would be, if they're talking about doing something on University Avenue now, if it would be a good time to also kind of bring that into the discussion to say, listen, we have two key areas of Charlottetown that could really use, that underground transport corridor. If that could be maybe thrown into the discussion as well.
Well, I'm not really sure how far advanced that other proposal is or where that is. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there because there's so many different, as I understand, so many different owners of, I mean, you're into the hundreds and you're dealing with land issues, you're dealing with legal issues. I mean, that's a project that's going to take a few years to come to fruition. I would think right now, and maybe I'm biased when I say this, I think right now we need to take full advantage of this opportunity because the university is building that road. So we got to strike while the iron's hot. And if they're, it's no secret how dangerous that is. I mean, I read today online on University Avenue, there was one vehicle that was going 111 kilometers. So, I mean, they're just gunning it through that area. So why not, like I said, why not strike while the iron's hot? Let's try to make this a reality and bring the three parties together. And this committee here can play a very pivotal role in making that happen.
Just connected to this university underpass and kind of to add strength to it, I know that my brother-in-law, Mitch Underhay, through Bike Friendly Charlottetown, has been connecting the Charlottetown rural, you can probably hear Lyndon in the back, the Charlottetown rural teachers who work with students, and like co-op students, and the active transportation fund, and talking about getting the students involved and basically building an active transportation lane, a proper one, through, like basically on the other side of that underpass, like from Enman Crescent through that. Right now there's like a dirt path.
Okay.
Do you guys know where I'm talking about? That kind of goes through Charlottetown Rural and all the way connects to North River Road, I think.
Yeah, through the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, so there's movement there. I don't know how far it's gotten, but I know because right now they're soliciting ideas for the active transportation fund, the provincial one, that they're trying to put something together for that.
Okay.
You, Peter, I assume that's you putting that on the screen.
I've got a photo for every story.
You're prepared. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of let you guys know that side of things is also there's talks about something happening there. Possibly working with the students and doing a co-op thing and pulling together different groups. But it would be kind of nice if all of those pieces of the puzzle were coming together at the same time.
I did do a little bit of discussion just with some of our public works folks here on the potential, like going under University Avenue. Like, I think we should definitely be trying to advocate for a safer crossing across University Avenue to connect UPEI, and I'm aware of that project that Mitch has been working on too, and connect those two. One of the things that was brought up that I hadn't thought of, that I just kind of want to make sure the committee is aware of, is when you're coming down Enmond towards University Avenue, and if we were looking to do an underpass there, there's a substantial slope when you're going down that hill. And some of the new requirements for AT, especially around accessibility and safety, are going to require some serious changes to the slope. So what we would need to do if we were going to do an underpass is to do a pretty significant zigzag pattern, to have like a very low sloped ramp that had them come down. And it may actually be quite a distance that someone would need to travel to safely come down that slope from a design perspective. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it's like 100% like not doable, but there's a design challenge there in terms of the distance that you would need to travel at a lower grade slope in order for it to be safe. And my concern, I guess, would be, do people pick that option when they have a much quicker option that maybe isn't as safe, but would get them across the intersection faster? So, well, I just think maybe we don't want to get too caught up on specifically underpass in all scenarios, but a safer crossing across University Avenue, because that's not something I had considered, the distance that you would need to use in order to get people down that slope, so that it wasn't like a rapid sort of downhill.
I wondered about that too, Ramona. I wondered though, when Carrie mentioned that other path and not knowing exactly how, I know, Peter, you showed a picture, but I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention. If there was any way that could come in instead of coming down Enmond, if it would be part of the path that they're making, maybe? I don't know, because I wondered that too, how you'd get down from the avenue down below, although I like the underpass idea. But I guess I let someone with an engineering background figure that one out.
Yeah, we did originally talk about, there's kind of two parts to Enmond. There's Enmond at the lights, and then there's the Enmond crescent, like that comes up where the crosswalk is. So when we had originally talked about this idea, we were actually thinking of rerouting the AT path along the upper part of Enmond, and having them cross away from that intersection. And I mean, there's pros and cons to both. You have the lights down you have a control intersection down at the bottom of the hill, so maybe there's opportunity there to make it safer. But I know Public Works is doing an improvement to the call light for pedestrian crossing at the upper Enmond, sort of like towards where it was Mark's Work Warehouse, but now it's a UPEI building. So that crossing up there was what we had initially intended as to be the AT sort of crossing, but there's a lot.
Because also, Ramona, at the bottom of the hill, there's quite a bit of water on the UPEI side. I don't know if anybody's walked it or, ridden along there and noticed, but it's almost like, I don't know, part of a creek or, runoff or swampy area, whatever. There's a lot of water down there at the lower end, the other end of the inlet that you're talking about.
And because that's a riparian area, we can't just go in there and pave a path through it. Like, there would have to be setbacks away from the waterway and everything. So, I think obviously an underpass, if we would provide a very safe option, but I just want that there is some design challenges there. The focus should be on a safe crossing across University Avenue, and kind of like allow ourselves to be a bit open to what that might look like.
I mean, I would suggest that if I could distill our discussions, that we are fully in support of a safer crossing across University Avenue, and we see that both as an issue of safety of people in that area, UPI to the other side and vice versa. But also we see this as an important linchpin in connecting existing active transportation routes, both the Confederation Trail, the Hermitage Craic Trail, and beyond on either side. And to your point, Ramona, I don't think that could be an overpass, an underpass, roundabout, dare I say. But yeah, I don't think we need to get into the design part of it until the plan is further advanced. But I don't think, Councillor Tweel, that precludes further discussions with Minister Myers, because I think he would have expertise in that regard as well.
I think you're correct, and I think all options would be on the table, but a very serious look would look at the underpass or underground pedway or whatever you want to refer to, whatever you want.
And I think, Ramona, you make a good point that as part of SAFE, we need to consider usability. And because if something could be, extremely safe, but if nobody uses it, it's not safe at all. So I think we need to take that as a whole package.
So we'll wait to hear, with further deliberations with the minister, and then take it from there. And if this committee sees fit to supporting such an initiative, maybe you might even want to send the minister, send him an email or a letter in support of the idea.
I think it's a good idea. Thank you,
Ryan.
Well, thank you, Councillor Tweel. I think that was a helpful briefing.
Well, I hope I was able to give you some insight. It's very still at the idea stage, to be honest with everyone. It's at the idea stage, but that's usually where these initiatives come from, and you just pursue it and pursue it and pursue it until you make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's the larger issue which you highlight is that when there's capital projects being undertaken, we should always take that opportunity to at the same time look at how we can increase accessibility and active transportation options. That's, as you say, strike while the iron's hot. Now's the time to do it.
And to your point, Peter, the minister pointed that out when he phoned me. That money is available, and he's very enthusiastic about pursuing this. So,
great.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll sign off, and I want to thank Peter. Thank you for the invitation, and I want to thank Ryan and all members of the committee. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Next is the discussion with David Sims about active transportation issues relating to cycling. I seen he stepped out there. Are you here, David?
I see David.
I see David too.
David, can you hear us?
Is he on mute?
I don't think so. David, you're not showing up as muted, but we can't hear you.
Oh, he's out there now.
I was communicating. He called me. He was having trouble downloading it, and he may have some technical issues. I'm not sure here.
He was showing up as video earlier.
Yeah. Oh, I saw him there, but I never heard him.
Well, we can oh, it says he left the meeting. He might be
Trying again.
David's in the room.
Do you want me to go ahead then, Ryan, and he can?
Sure.
Because mine's
Excuse
pretty
me,
quick.
Heather, before you go, did you see the note from Margaret Gallant? She's also having technical difficulties.
She texted. She's been texting in the meeting here. She came in and said that she can see and hear us, but she's just typing.
Okay.
Okay.
I can see Margaret.
I can see her too.
Okay, so we'll postpone the David Sims talk until he arrived and move to new university bike co-op.
Yeah, I have to apologize. Thanks, Ryan. It's not as new as I thought. It was there was they just they posted just as a reminder. I realized after. So in any event, it's a good refresher for us to know that it exists. So the university has owned some bikes and helmets and locks, and they make them available to students. They get the lock and the key and everything, and it's the idea is to be able to give them an opportunity to have an active transportation, I guess, vehicle to get them around. Probably, especially now with some more international students that have stayed that aren't getting home, and so they can use them on campus or off campus. I did find an article about when it was launched back last fall, and as I understand, they're free to use for the students, but they have a week to use. Like, they can use them week about. I don't know what the volume would be right now, but in any event, I guess what I wanted to let them know was that maybe that we could share some information with them about the bus system and how there's buses that they can put their bikes on and that kind of thing. Ramona, would there be any other resources, like any of the stuff that was being printed or links to stuff that we could give the student union that we could share with them, just so that they are, and maybe they have awareness of it already, but maybe just as a refresher, especially as the school year will be coming in, if there are in fact students on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the bike map, and there's the cycling handbook, and some other safety.
Okay.
So if you send me a contact, then I could get Katrina to follow up and talk off some things for them.
Yeah, so I'll connect with the student union and find out who the point person is, and then I'll make the introduction to get some resources there so that they're aware of what's available within the community off campus for them to use their transportation.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Just curious about that. Like, I wonder if it'd be good to know an overview of places that they went in town, like where they could put their bike and make it safe. Like, that seems like something too that might help a international student that doesn't know anything where to put the bike, take it. So
yeah,
I think the bike, like the resources Ramona was talking about, are a pretty good head start, because they have bike parking locations and they have bike-friendly businesses that support the city's efforts. So,
Heather,
yes, sir.
do we know how many bikes they do have out there at UP yet?
When they started, they had 7, I think. Let me just look here. And they were looking to increase that number.
So is the student union responsible for it?
That's who you contact they had 7 bicycles available. Originally. So I don't know. I can follow up to find out how many they have now.
And Heather, too, our community sustainability microgrant program is open right now for application. So I don't know if they're at where they want to be, or if they're even active right now, but that is certainly an application that we would consider if they want to submit something.
Oh, okay.
And that's up to $2,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Put that in the email too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you. I see David Sims is back on here. I'm not sure if he can hear us. Are you there?
Calling to David.
David.
There is a way for him to call in through, I think, Joanne, that's what you did last time, where you just called in using your phone and you were on phone audio. I wonder if maybe that might work.
I did that. And Margaret's doing that now.
Okay.
Ryan, do you have a way of getting in touch with David? Could you text him that number, whatever it is?
Do you have just a moment here? I'm just gonna. I'll be back in a second. Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear us, David? No. Hello?
So even if we had his phone number, I could just call him and put him on speaker and hold him up to my phone, onto my computer here.
Okay, just a moment here. I do have his number here.
Okay.
And last time I did find it hard reading the buttons at the bottom of the phone for what was audio and or speaker and there's because right now I'm talking, but there's a line through my microphone, right? But I guess it means I'm on. So if I want to mute, then I press it and it goes orange. I've figured that much out. But
So,
everybody's, Zoom is different. This is different, just a little bit different.
and it takes a few tries to get it down packed. So, his number here is 902-620-9414.
Okay, I'll give him a call here.
Okay.
All right, David, we'll just do a little test here. Do you want to just say hello and your name, and we'll see if everybody can hear you?
Sure, yeah. My name is David Sims. I'm speaking through a highly original manner, and can everybody hear me all right?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Yep.
So was I the only one cutting in and out for the entire meeting so far?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's exploring that out in New Haven. We'll blame them because it died many times. Well, to start with, do you have a full quorum? You got your committee all together?
We do. I think we have everyone in attendance tonight.
And that includes Mitchell. He's decided to join you tonight?
Mitchell's not here any longer, but the mayor is here.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Hi, David.
Well, for my portion, and I want to start by saying I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak with all of you. I did want to ask a couple of sort of initial questions. How often have you met in the last, since you formed as a group?
Every month.
Oh, okay, so more than half a dozen times.
I think we're coming up on a year anniversary, are we not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's excellent. Okay, well then, you see, the reason I asked that question is you're ahead of me. So if I say anything that is old, you just interrupt me, and we'll let that go. And because I don't want to repeat old stuff, I do want to share with you some of my background in active transportation, particularly with regards to bike to cycling. But again, I want to repeat, if I'm saying something old, then please let me know, and I won't go there. What I thought I would do is start with what I'm going to call vision overview stuff, and that'll be quick, and then to talk a little bit about the possible routes that a committee like yours might have effectiveness and success, and then finally, maybe not even really for this meeting, maybe for future meetings, specific projects. I mean, I could go on those forever. I think we've all got ideas as to how to make the Charlottetown area a better and safer place to cycle. Does that sound like a reasonable accommodation?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Great.
In terms of introduction, I'm a recently retired professor from the university. I'm a past president for a couple of terms of Cycling PEI. There's a section of Cycle Canada which is not devoted to the racing scene. Most of it is competitive, but they've got one small section which is called the Can Bike. And the Canadian Bicycling is their section for safe riding, urban riding, and the design of bike trails and paths. I'm one of their certified instructors, so I've got some experience there. And in addition, I've cycled in many countries in Europe, and throughout many states in the U.S. and many provinces, and I've seen ways to do things that I've been really impressed with. So it's from that background that I'm coming. Vision. The first one that I want to talk about is that when I ask people at random to describe the bicycle that comes into their mind, they don't know the bikes. Some people think mountain bikes. Some people think road bikes. Some people think about the tricycle varieties. For some, it's recumbents. Almost nobody thinks about kids with training wheels on their bikes, and almost nobody thinks about the needs of visually impaired or physically impaired, such as some of the 4- and 3-wheel bikes that exist for adults. So bikes are highly variable. A bicycle today can be e-assisted, and later on I will be making recommendations to you people that you generously define bicycle and work with the province to establish provincial guidelines that generously provide for electrical assist. That's not to say motorized, and it's not to say fast, but in that way we can get people who would say they can't normally cycle. And if they're not normally cycling, then it may be due to a bad knee or a bad hip. There's no reason why they can't cycle with an e-assist bike, that sort of thing. Has there been any discussion in your group about the other group known as 8 to 80 cities?
No?
Anybody?
No.
Okay, that's fine. You can text this anytime you want, but 8 to 80 cities is a fascinating social movement that takes that real clunker of a name and tries to build their public infrastructure, and that cycling, but definitely also includes buses and sidewalks and other roadways. So that an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old can find their way around without any trouble. So they take the science of signage and safety really seriously. And so when I think about bicycling in Charlottetown, it's one thing for me to picture myself driving down University Avenue. I can do that, no problem. It's another thing to ask somebody to send an 8-year-old down University Avenue. And so therein lies the difference in many of the designs that I'm going to be proposing. An 80-year-old may have difficulty hearing, seeing, or with balance. And so once again, you're not going to send them at rush hour down University Avenue protected by a little strip of white paint that we call a lane. And so it's a whole different mindset if you take the 8 to 80 mentality. The visions that I would work with as I move in this direction were best summarized by a premier of British Columbia who about a decade ago said he doesn't insist that everybody ride a bicycle, but everybody ought to have the opportunity to ride a bicycle pretty well, free of motor vehicles, as much as possible within the province. And I think that's a pretty good one to adopt. If you're going to develop a vision, how can you make the Charlottetown area as accessible to cyclists away from motor vehicles as possible? We realize that you can't do everything overnight, but if you don't have a broad vision like that, then you're not going to move ahead. The second one would be we seek for a city that uses cycling paths to link residences with places of work, education, recreation, and commerce. And the whole of Prince Edward Island is sufficiently small that we kind of have to lump them all together. At least I would recommend you do. And that is to say, if we're going to design any kind of a bike path anywhere, look into the needs of students going to schools and people who live wherever going to wherever they work. Another vision for me would be having an island, or at least a city in this case, of citizens who are healthier, more productive, happier, and who ultimately retain more money. And the financial part is something we could spend a long time on. There are many ways in which cycling can save money for the individuals, and in addition to the to municipalities. In all of your discussions so far, has the book Bikeonomics been discussed?
Nope. Peter, have you tried to give us that list?
I
That
did.
one?
Yeah, that was. I think I brought that up last fall sometime, but it's a good book. I agree.
What's it called again, please?
Bikeonomics is
David?
getting old. It's 7 years old now. It was written by an American in, I believe, Portland, in the western part of USA. But it covers chapter by chapter the money issues. And some of them are just excellent. And many of them pertain to municipalities the size of Charlottetown. So it would actually make a really good reference for a number of ideas, including, as just one example, giving up parking spaces downtown and turning them into bike parking spaces. And when you do that, an awful lot of money can be generated and saved in both directions. So that was and then I think you've already heard, I'm sure it's not news to any of you, that people who engage in something like cycling, which can be mild exercise, or incredibly heavy exercise, are healthier. And money is really saved in big ways, in not just the lack of productivity, but in the quality of life and health issues. An island, another vision would be an island with low carbon emissions. I think that one's kind of straightforward. I hope it is. Another one would be an island or in Charlottetown embracing cycling 12 months of the year. That is, to me, worthy of an entire meeting. So I won't spend any more time on it, but there are many ways that other parts of the world keep their cycling paths open and running, regardless of the weather. Some of the countries like Denmark and Sweden have worse weather than we do. So it can be done. Then, how about Charlottetown steadily moving towards active transportation instead of motor vehicles? And there's a number of ways through incentivizing and disincentivizing that this can be done. And I switched from the word cycling to active transportation because we're a sufficiently small population that I think we really ought to lump together public transportation, walking, and cycling in at least some of our discussions. And then the last one, under the heading of vision, and then I'll invite questions, has got to do with what I call a changing of ethics. And this is a big one to me. I would propose that gasoline burning for recreational purposes is really out of date. And we've got in this province a very active ATV group, and we've got snowmobile groups. And I don't think that they're in step with what we would call the moral consequences of global warming anymore. And there's times when I don't think that this particular committee wants to hit this with a hammer and drill it too hard, but it's a changing ethic which is ongoing right now and ought to be recognized. So those are what I'm going to call the vision statements. Is there anything that we can talk about or discuss in more detail?
I think I agree with many, or perhaps all, of the points of your vision, David. I think one of the things I've learned about my participation, or through my participation on this committee and other work, is that we do not want for vision and we do not want for ideas. Often the challenge lies in changing behavior and in overcoming the political hurdles that have, I guess, the short form would be the inertia of the the fuel-based economy and everything that goes with it. So, to give you an example, every time I cycle the cycle path through Victoria Park, I wonder how it is that we're ever going to get to the point that we can convince people not to drive their cars through Victoria Park and sit in the summertime idling, looking at the harbor, when I'm experiencing at the same time all the benefits of being outside, not being in a fossil fuel vehicle, getting exercise, et cetera, et cetera. I know that if that came before council, if the proposal before council was we're going to close the Victoria Park roadway to everything but bicycles, that would not pass. There would be a political hue and cry. Councillors would suffer politically for it. It's not a doable idea. So what I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is how do we get from where we are, take the vision that you're I think very succinctly exposing us to, and then combine it with the situation on the ground to good end.
Great. Okay, we're on the same wavelength, aren't we? Really, that's good. What I'm going to propose is a couple of different things now. I'm going to talk about background issues, and background issues for some people are boring, but I think we better get into them. And then lastly, I'll talk about specific projects and programs. Ramona knows in all too much detail that the devil is always in the details, and these things are a lot tougher to carry out than to propose. And I like the way you put it, Peter. There's lots of good ideas out there. But you kind of have to merge these. So there's the background details, and then there's going to be the projects and programs. And as I said, if we don't ever get to the programs and projects, then in this particular meeting, well, then that would be fine because we've only got so much time. To address the one that you just mentioned, and that's Victoria Park. This is a place that, to me, makes for a loop. Not a one-way thing. So you start up there at Fanning Bank, you get on the bike trail, and you ride your bicycle all the way down to the end of the swimming pool. And then what do you do? If you're a grandfather with 3 kids, you may not want to do Brighton Road, and you may not want to do any of the roads in that area. If it's you or me, that's another matter. And there's a little path, and it's in the woods, and it's in Victoria Park. It starts just about exactly where the paved path ends, and it goes almost, I think, as far as North River Road. That should be developed and signed. With all of the work that's being done from along Brighton or Euston Road all the way to Terry Fox Way, I'd love to see a bike path separate from the road, built across those wide expanse of greens or grasses, and connecting with Terry Fox Way, creating a loop. And as soon as you've got loops, then it's far more fun for moms and dads to take kids, or grandpa and grandma to take kids. So that's one thing. A second one would be to make it known to the citizenry by having what I call bike and seek, fun rides. And I could propose, I could talk those over if you wanted with Ramona privately, or we could discuss them all on the meeting. But basically, the equivalent of hide and seek, only you do it on a bicycle, and the aim is to find things. So bike and seek is what I call it. And you hold a few of those, and then let the word spread that it's a safe, enjoyable process in which moms and dads or grandparents are not scared for their kids. So we're back to the 8 to 80 approach. So Peter, those are 2 things that I would suggest that have to do with the one thing that you wondered there, because let's face it, at the moment it's a problem. I agree with you. It's wonderful having a bike path through Victoria Park, but it's not really usable for the full breadth of our citizenry.
Yeah.
Okay.
David?
What I broadly will call the role for your committee, if I may, and I'll make this as fast as possible because I think you already know this stuff. The first one would be establishing your terms of reference and your objectives, and please make them as lofty as possible and clear, even if they aren't achievable, but at least an example of lofty or would be minimizing contact between motor vehicles and cyclists whenever you can. Please do that. To spell that one out even more thoroughly, I love to see a bicycle path. If I can't have a bicycle path in which there's no motor vehicles, then I would rather put bicyclists with pedestrians. The great example being the Confederation Trail, but there are many others, including several in Charlottetown. And then last of all, paint a line, give a half a meter or a meter to the bicyclists, and put them on the road. But that's something that to me is dated. We shouldn't be doing that if we can avoid it. The second thing, defining outcomes. Defining the outcomes of a very well-designed bicycle network include financial, health, increased tourism, environmental benefits, family benefits, municipal benefits, and huge savings, and that's where the economics comes in, and educational. We can use the educational system to develop many of the mindsets that, as Peter commented on earlier, they don't exist right now. So there's a lot of ways to do these things. When it comes to the really big one here is identifying the roles of the different ministries and departments within the city, the provincial ministries and the departments within the city. And I want to give you a really big example that I'm seeing right now in the province of Ontario. The main beneficiary, it's been shown in many countries, the main beneficiary is the health program. Cyclists tend to do this thing that we call dying acutely. And dying acutely is the opposite of people who spend their last 8 to 12 years in some kind of a nursing home or palliative care situation. If they're going to die, and we're all going to die, it's probably going to be heart failure, and they're probably going to die in their sleep. That's what healthy people do. And the healthcare costs of those last 8 to 12 years for so many people is amazing. It's truly amazing. When you look at the provincial budget for healthcare, and this just jumps right out. And the main beneficiary in Ontario being the health system, it is actually Ontario Health that funds a lot of the bicycle conventions. They actually, because they realize the benefit. And that's 20 or 25 years away. So you have to think longer term. Who else pays for the cost of building a bicycle infrastructure? Well, it's almost always the roads department in a town or the highways department for a province. And so they see this as an expense that they want to minimize. But if the money comes from somewhere else, the Department of the Environment and the Department of Health, they need to step up. So you want to match the request for funding with the source of the benefit. That's what I mean by that. Research sources of funding. This is something that somebody on your committee ought to be tackling. The federal government in particular, but there's a lot of nonprofit groups that are getting involved in green initiatives, an awful lot of them. The federal government often has 80% dollars for some initiatives, and sometimes it's only 30% dollars, but 30%, not 33%. And knowing this sort of thing can completely change the outlook when you're making a proposal to the city of Charlottetown. So knowing where your money is going to come from and how to co-fund it, I think is important. Another one is understanding and maybe recommending updating of provincial laws. I mentioned earlier a generous definition of the bicycle. I'm not sure what it is right now in Prince Edward Island, but we tried to do this for years within Cycling PEI and had minimal success. Defining what is a shared path as opposed to a sidewalk. I'm not sure that it's ever been looked at, but I think it would be very important, especially in Charlottetown. A classic example for me is you look every day and you see a lot of cyclists going down University Avenue, going up and down. And on some parts of University Avenue, there isn't a sidewalk on both sides. And so you've got people who are walking and people who are cycling, and they're doing it fine. And I'm not aware that there's been any deaths as a result of collisions or anything like that. So make it a little bit wider, and you've got a safe situation. But we have to define when is a sidewalk, and when is it a shared path. And we can work on that one. And then over time, I know Vancouver's been really good at this. Over time, they've been giving additional or more rights to cyclists. So, Peter, to go back to your original quandary, what they'll do in cases like this is they would start off with, at intersections, bicyclists are about equal with cars in terms of pushing a button to get a light to turn green in their direction. But over time, they're becoming more and more responsive for the cyclists, and they're making the cars wait longer. And because they want to encourage people to be riding bicycles. Education. Talking for the municipality of Charlottetown to be talking about including the safe use of bicycles in the school curriculum and the responsibility of drivers in driver education, I think is perfectly reasonable because they're not showing the leadership. So it's somebody that has to start from someplace. Cycling in the educational curriculum. This is not really, I don't think, 100% on with the mandate of your committee, but I want you to be aware of it. In the country Spain, they have multi-tiered competitive bicycle riding. And by multi-tiered, I mean some people are just not born to be athletic. Some people are not born to be cyclists, and other people are. And so they have multiple, as I say, multi-tiered rate teams. And they want everybody to ride a bicycle, to ride as fast and as hard as they can within their own abilities, and to embrace getting around by bicycle. And the net result is everybody who gets their driver's license is already a seasoned cyclist. And what a difference it makes. The reception on the roads of Spain is just so different than it is in Canada. And I think Canada's getting pretty good. But there's an awful long way to go. So the role of cycling in the educational system is something we could be thinking about. Another one that the group 8 to 80 cities taught me is always seek lots of local input. And I have a feeling that Charlottetown's pretty good at this already. I think there's a history of that, seeking local input into most ideas as they come forward, and to keep it going. The design of a 1 kilometer long bike path is the way I look at it. It's 10 100-meter bike paths, and each one is going to be a little different depending on the needs of the locals, the idiosyncrasies of the intersections, and talking to the locals is probably the best way to deal with those. And then lastly, creating programs that have the potential to go private. I think that if Charlottetown were to create some potentially money-making programs centering around cycling, and then put them up to a bidder on a lease basis, or just sell them or give them away so that private enterprise can take over, then what we're doing is we're creating jobs, and in the process creating a better cycling infrastructure within the city. So that's a list of what I'm calling possible roles, and I listed 10. I'll quit here, and if there's any comment, then let's tackle these ones.
Ryan, can I ask a question, Ryan?
Sure.
David.
You're muted.
Am I not coming through?
No, I think we're all good.
Fine, David. I think the mayor wanted to say something, but he's muted right now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yes.
David?
Yeah, go ahead.
David, listen, I'm glad that you...
Oh, you're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Good now?
Yep.
Is that good?
Yep.
So, David, the last time you and I spoke goes back to the old Murphy Center when you gave a presentation on cycling in Charlottetown, and your enthusiasm is it's still at the same level. But when you talked about the loop around Victoria Park, that is coming off Brighton or off the pathway, the Victoria Park pathway, onto Brighton Road and head east on Brighton Road down to Terry Fox. called the Terry Fox Boulevard, or is it Terry Fox Drive, and head back to...
I'm not really sure myself, yeah.
Yes, Terry Fox Drive, head back to the start of Victoria Park by Fanning Bank. That's been talked about, but the issue is that Victoria Park is provincially owned, but the city takes care of the park in terms of maintenance and care. I'm just wondering, how do you cut into the park when you get down on Brighton Road towards the old Prince Edward Home, Prince Edward Island Hospital? That's going to be the challenge. I like the idea. It's how do we manage, because if we do have to cut in, we have to cut into the wooded area of Victoria Park, heading east on Brighton Road to Terry Fox Drive.
The wooded area, which starts way down by the swimming pool area, like at the very corner, where the current bike paved path ends, it's already got a path. That's the beautiful thing of this.
Are you saying the wide
area, all the way up to North River Road, there's a path in the woods.
So widen that path out onto this roadway, or widen it into the woods a bit?
I would stay in the woods ends about there, and then you're into the clearings from the old buildings that are being removed, and all the work and all the open green spaces. I don't consider the wooded area to be a problem, and there's not much to do. The path's already there, and it's even of sufficient width.
Okay. So extend that pathway along Terry Fox Drive, make a pathway to run parallel to the green space up to Fanning Bank, and that could complete the loop. Correct?
Yeah, and if we're going to get down to those kinds of details, I don't even really want to present you with a map. I think we should go for a walk.
Okay. Just a second comment, David. An issue that keeps coming up at City Council is education on wearing bicycle helmets. And I know you probably see lots of bike riders, young and old, riding their bikes on city streets without helmets. With all your experience, I know enforcement is the responsibility of the city police. Provincially, it's up to the other jurisdictions like Summerside, Kensington, and then the RCMP. But it just doesn't seem to be enforced. What have you seen what have you noticed or picked up in other jurisdictions outside of Prince Edward Island to enforce or educate people about the importance of using bicycle helmets?
Yeah, let me expand it just a little bit. I'll get there because I take it seriously myself. The number of people who are not riding with any kind of lights at night on their bicycles is also a concern to me. Part of this is the manufacturing and the sales is a problem in North America. In Europe, bicycles come with lights and front and back, and some of them even today have brake lights, which is not just a light. And so there are differences around the world. And when lights are part of the bicycle, they can't be stolen. Whereas when you and I attach a little elastic band sort of device with a nice expensive headlight to our bike, it's just waiting to be ripped off. So returning to helmets, many places in Europe don't require them. I mean, it's as simple as that. They've gone away from them not because they don't work, but because they're hard to enforce, and for some people they're awkward to go to work with, things like that. So a lot of places just don't require them. Many provinces today require that you have a helmet if you're less than 18. As for enforcement,
that's the issue.
That's something to discuss with the police, and I'm not the person to do it. I always wear a helmet, always, 100% of the time when I'm on a bicycle.
So do I.
But I agree with you. A lot of people are choosing not to. They don't like what it does to their hair when they're going to work, and things like that, and that trumps safety, which is a shame.
Yeah. Okay. So just last thing, the last item, we'll follow up on that walk around that loop that you're talking about. Just give me a call.
Yeah, I'll do that. Wonderful. And even with proper social distancing, we can have more than two of us. So if anybody else wants to do this, it's just I think it's wonderful, and we just get out and we plot it. And yes, it may be land that formally belongs to the province, but if the right combination of a full proposal comes in, then that's the way it ought to be. Let me talk to you very frankly about dealing with the province in the past, and this has cut through political stripes. So I'm not trying to do conservative or green or liberal bash here. We have tried at Cycling PEI for a long time to get a path on the side of the Hillsborough Bridge. And it's been obfuscated, it's been changed, it's been dropped, it's been canceled for financial reasons, it's been put back on for financial reasons. Engineers have told us that it wasn't feasible, and I don't believe any of that. You know, I have a background in engineering. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I don't understand the problem because it's being done all over Europe. It's very easy to put to extend bike lanes, paths on the sides of bridges. It is not a technical challenge, and it doesn't have to be. So I don't. The last one, of course, was waiting until the new sewage proposal would be rearranging the bridge anyway, and how that managed to come and go without any bike path, I'm not really sure, because I was no longer active in Cycling PEI. But we still don't have the bike path, and that's a real shame. So it may take some real diplomacy to deal with these kind of problems that are when they involve the province. But you see, here's the other side of this one, to me. When I look at the finances of the city of Charlottetown, what is the provincial grant? Isn't it already 45% of all of your income?
It's how much?
It's some big number. Yeah.
A provincial grant to the city?
Yeah.
If you look at the provincial grant in context of our budget, it's about $14 million of a $60 million budget.
Okay, so I'm a little off there. It's what?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so 14 out of 60. The point is, it's significant. There's an awful lot of money. So asking for the province to pay what really should be a provincial concern and interest for its citizens is, in my opinion, pretty reasonable.
Yeah, but I think the province is looking at the active transportation pathway across the bridge. It'll be up to the two communities on both sides, Stratford and Charlottetown, to connect the approaches.
Okay, well then, so to me, that's an overall, again, a path, a beautiful path on the bridge is useless if you can't get to it. And so, now you've got, you're dividing it into three: the paths on the bridge themselves, and then the bike lanes or paths on either side of it, so that a commuter who works in Stratford or vice versa, who commutes to Charlottetown, can do it safely. And the two directions are totally different when you've got that many lanes. So you really need to be thinking carefully about that one. And the fact that it's now divided into three means three potential sources of money, but I would be surprised if the municipalities can't go straight to the federal government and seek some additional support.
Okay.
Anyway, but that's a specific one. I wasn't planning to go there. There's loads of specific programs that would or projects that I could go into, but I've taken up an awful lot of your time already, so maybe I shouldn't do that.
Okay, before you go though,
so
I want to just make a comment. First thing, Philip, when you set up that walk in Victoria Park, Margaret Gallant messaged that she'd like to join.
Oh, yeah.
And David, I wrote to the Department of Education last month and asked them what specifically education-wise, safety-wise, was the province providing in the elementary school. And from my recollection, and Philip, you might have some of that too in that background, grade 5 health, there was 4 pages on hand signals and the importance of helmets and cycling for children. However, the Department of Education spokesperson wrote back to me saying that bike safety and riding bicycles was specific to the physical education section of the curriculum, and that they tended not to put too much emphasis on it because most children in the province of Prince Edward Island do not have bicycles. Most children do not have access to bicycles. It's an economics. So would you make a suggestion perhaps that somewhere we should look at trying to get bicycles into the hands of children and have that lifestyle start at the elementary school age?
Absolutely, I would. One of the things that rarely gets talked about is the price of bicycles. You or I can, but I didn't know this until quite recently. It was on the Trek website. You can spend $24,000 on a bike if you want, and that's not even if you're Olympic grade. That's a little rich for my blood. A good quality bicycle can easily be built these days, built and sold, and at a profit for the $100 range or less. And then there's the fact that kids have this bad habit of growing. And so that'll cause some parents to just not even know how to get involved. And if they were made available, that would be wonderful. If they were available for actual use in the school system. So now we're getting into aerobic exercise. There's an amazing concept for you. Then it would be a double win.
Great.
Yeah. Well, Joanne.
Hi.
Yeah, on bicycle safety in the school and through the health program.
Yes.
I know that 3 years I taught health at the grade 5 level.
Yes.
Many times I couldn't get to that point because there were so many other areas that had to be covered. So I don't know how many teachers were covering it. So it's a difficult challenge. Plus, the days of the old bike rodeos that were held at all the schools are now gone because it was taking too much class time.
Well, what about if we bring it back? Well, we've talked about this. Like next spring, the city of Charlottetown brings it back as an introductory program during recess and just targets grade 4 or grade 5 and does it on the school ground in conjunction with the phys ed teacher or who's ever supervising at that time. Philip, did Prince Street School have a program where they were providing bicycles for children? Do you remember?
That was through the Charlottetown Masonic Lodge, and they provided over, Ramona, you might remember, but I think it was over 25 bikes. It was a read for bikes, and the students that read the most books kept putting their names in a hat, and they drew from those entries 25 plus bikes with helmets.
Yeah.
I think it was per grade, a boy and a girl for each grade.
I sold 6. Yes, so it was 24 bikes. Yeah.
Thank you.
But that was only. Ramona, did it go on for a couple of years after I left? I don't know.
I think it was 2. It was either 2 or 3 years. I think.
Great idea.
Yes.
And the Rotary is always reaching out for options too, of different things that they can do in the community. I don't know if that's something that they'd be interested in, but there's another partner that would potentially be interested in something like that.
Good idea, Ramona, because the Charlottetown Rotary Club is looking for some ideas for community involvement. I'll pass that on.
Thank you.
I'm a member of the Canadian Ski Patrol, and we, about every 3 years, get a reasonably generous donation from UPSI, the union. Just another potential source. They like to be community spirited.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, David Sims, for your presentation. It was very informative and lots to discuss, definitely.
Well, great, and thank you for the opportunity. I didn't get to projects and programs, and that's all right. We can save them for another day if you want. And it's because I've been around Charlottetown enough that I can make some specific suggestions. But I think the big picture stuff's far more important. So go at it. Yeah.
Thanks, David. We'll follow up.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Nice being with you.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you. Next is concerns about speed bumps.
Yeah, so I'm just the messenger here, but a few different people contacted Bike Friendly Charlottetown with concerns about the speed bumps, and it's basically their concerns are about the length of them and just the fact that they extend over where the bike lanes would be or where bicycles are on the street. If it's okay with you guys, I'll just read a letter I was sent by Dale Sorensen because he says it really well. I can bring it up here. Maybe I can. Oh, yes. Okay. So his letter just goes as follows. It's that time of year when the city of Charlottetown has installed seasonal speed humps on streets throughout the city. In a 2018 CBC article, City Councillor Terry Bernard was quoted as stating that the speed humps are installed to span the entire street so that drivers can't avoid them. While I understand the need for measures to attempt to slow speeding cars in residential areas, these humps, when extended across shoulders to the edge of the road, are an impediment to the safety of cyclists. Many of these shoulders are designated cycling lanes. Installing speed humps across the path only serves to make Charlottetown less friendly for cyclists and deters newer riders. When cycling recently through the town of Cornwall, I noticed that their speed humps do not extend to the edge of the road, but rather leave a little space for cyclists to steer around them. I would like to propose that Charlottetown do the same. Cornwall's humps seem to be no less effective at reducing traffic speeds, but at the same time create more welcoming conditions for cyclists. Our shoulders are already full of hazards: potholes, recessed storm drains, loose dirt and gravel, and cracked pavement. More careful consideration of these speed humps would be an easy way to help support the city's mandate to create a culture of active transportation in our city. So I thought that was a well-written letter. That just seemed like the kind of issue to me that this group is actually pretty good at talking to the right people about seeing if there's anything that could be done. If I can figure, he sent me pictures. How easy is it to share stuff, Peter?
Just click on the upward pointing share content button down at the bottom, and then you have to scroll down to the bottom of the box that pops up and click share file.
Thank you. Anyway, he just sent me basically it's a picture of the Charlottetown version. Yeah. Sorry, okay, here's Charlottetown. Can you see that? It's sideways. Is it sideways?
Was it taken in the winter? It's very white.
Yes, those are mine. I'm
There we go.
plain white.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
So this is the Charlottetown. Mine's sideways. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. That's okay.
Okay,
That's fine.
that's what that's what he's talking about. That's the Charlottetown example where it just extends all the way to the edge, and then the Cornwall example. You can probably imagine what it looks like. Looks like this. You see that?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
It's coming up.
Coming up.
Oh yeah.
So it's just a little shorter.
Oh.
And I don't know, like from an equipment perspective, if that's as simple as just taking off a panel on the side.
Probably is.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
One concern, and I think David Sims highlighted this, is that certainly if you're on a two-wheeled bicycle, there's no problem. I think navigating through that looks like a foot and a half space there. If you're on a three-wheeled or a four-wheeled bicycle, it means you're more likely to tip over because now one of your back wheels is going up an inch and the other one isn't. So I don't know if that means we could remove two. I don't know if removing two panels to allow enough for a three-wheeled bicycle would suffice, or does that make it too easy for cars to skirt around it? But I think we need to keep all bicycles in mind, as David suggested.
Yes, that's a good point, Peter.
But I agree. Like I've encountered that, especially in situations where I think on Queen Elizabeth Drive, if I'm correct, there are, or in the area around Queen Elizabeth Drive, I've encountered those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carrie,
Yes.
did you speak to Cody or Corey Stevenson, who's the deputy mayor, or anyone in Cornwall about any of these safety issues, about removing that end panel?
About how that came about?
Oh, no, but if you could find out, could we follow up and ask if there were any concerns about accidents because removing the end panels?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And who's the liaison for Public Works in this task force? Is it you, Ramona? Could we ask Scott Adams? Or take it back to Public Works and ask if they could look at removing the end panels?
I think it's Jason and Ryan, isn't it?
You said Scott Adams?
Yes.
The other person, Carrie, who might provide some intelligence there, because I know he's written letters to the editor about it over the year, is MLA Ola Hammerland. I know he's had some thoughts about speed bumps or speed humps on Upper Prince Street. So, and I know he's referenced what's done in other jurisdictions. So this may be a problem that has been solved elsewhere in a way that doesn't compromise the speed, the traffic calming, but allows cycling.
So reach out to Old Hammerlin, and I'll bring it up at the next Public Works Committee meeting, Standing Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a comment for it as well. Like, I understand that, like, the main reason is to slow the cars down. However, if you give the bikes kind of the right of way, like, there could be dangers of them going faster than they should be, and maybe it could be a conflict with cars going slower. I'm not sure, but just you'd have to understand the safety precautions of removing it too, with having perhaps more of a speed of the bikers now. You might, like, it might be something to look into as well. Just
Looking at it too, and looking at what I see up by the movie theaters, that what people try to do is drive around speed bumps. So if there's too much removed on either side, the nature for a lot of people is, I'm just going to go as far as I can, and then you're into a situation of damaged road or an accident or something else. So that's probably what I'm thinking is the reason why they're longer versus shorter.
The street is very narrow, though. There's nowhere for them to go. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So if the street is very narrow, which where I live, it is. In a couple of them, there's nowhere to go if they made them shorter for cyclists. Like, it's impossible for the cars to get around them. So I do think in some situations that is correct. But in others where the street is not wide anyway, they could certainly, I think, shorten them a little bit.
I think it's a good idea to look at what's been. I think it's a good idea to look at what's been done elsewhere.
That's right.
Good enough.
And we have an example just to the west, Cornwall.
And I wonder how much it's used for that basis. Like, is there many cyclists that even use it or not?
I'm sure if it's available, they will use it.
Yeah.
So that was the message I was tasked for you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next, moving on to using Gay Avenue for testing.
That's also me. I'll just tell you how this came about. One of our core team members at Bike Friendly Charlottetown lives right next to Gay Avenue, and he knew that in years past, the people in the streets had kind of been pro kind of putting up their own sort of barriers sometimes to keep the street car free. I don't know. Anyway, he went around whenever there was some talk about potentially shutting down different streets or trying something like that during COVID. And he just went around to all of his neighbors and asked them how they would feel about potentially having barriers at either end of the street, which is a residential street. I'm not really familiar with it myself, but to just have no through traffic and only the residents of that street, and kind of so that the kids could be in the street, it would be safe, that whole thing. And when he went to every house, and every single person on the street was in favor of this idea. So he brought that to the rest of us, and I said, well, why don't I just go to my meeting next week and just see what people think of that. I mean, it's a whole street full of people who would like to try it. And I know we had lots of discussion about this potential in different parts, but I mean, anyway. So I'm bringing just that information to everybody. There's a street full of people who are into this idea. If this is like a trial thing, we would like, or the city would like to try to do.
I just flashed
exactly, Peter.
This is a photo I took last week when I was in Halifax, in kind of off Whipple Road. There's a lot of the smaller streets that have had these. They're not blocked off. They're not restricted to traffic. They just have one of these traffic cones that says local traffic only, and then I think the slow street is a recent COVID addition.
Good idea.
I saw one today off of North Street in Halifax too. So they're quite prevalent. Where is Gay Street located, Carrie?
Down from Fifth Street School.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't prepare a handy map.
Yeah,
It's at the back corner behind where the old Kent used to be, where the Bottles for Missions is. There's a field behind there, a park, and it's right at the corner of that park.
So
could we make a recommendation to the Sustainable Advisory Committee that Ramona sits on to consider this, and then they in turn could recommend to council that they do it as a trial basis for so many months?
There it is right there. Thanks, Peter. Was that you who put that up, Peter?
Yep.
So it's just off Walton Drive and Oliver Street, the little connector street, the neighborhood street.
Well, I'd make a motion that we send that recommendation to the Sustainable Committee of Council for them to recommend it up to council. Can I have a seconder?
Photos. Yeah. Peter?
Yes?
And forward those photos that you have that we can use at the committee meeting.
I'll do that. And I would also second Joanne's motion.
Yeah.
Assuming you made a motion, Joanne.
She did.
I did. Thank you.
Is there in terms of next steps, like I know by just anecdotally that we have the residents of the street support, but is there a more formal way to represent that, or is that good enough? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that...
Well, I think the fact that your liaison bringing it to us, Carrie, is adequate enough. We've got to take some of these initiatives somehow. So, if it goes to the advisory council or not the advisory council, but if it goes to the sustainable committee, it's, I think that's enough.
I agree with
I would disagree a little bit. I just think it's good if we're going to bring something to the standing committee that we have our groundwork done and that we can make a recommendation where we say, we've done all this pre-work. This is already something that is supported by members of that community. This is what it would look like. I wouldn't typically bring something unless I felt like we were, we were strongly recommending it and we had the background support to say this is something we want to move forward with.
Carrie, could you go back to the proponent and suggest that if they gave us some documentation about the support, letters of support from the residents that they spoke to, and maybe their own mock-up of what they, are they thinking about something like I showed from Halifax, or do they have something else in mind? so that, as Ramona said, we kind of did go to the Sustainability Committee with, this is what we want to have happen, and here's the people in favor of it. And
It's the Standing Committee for Environment and Sustainability.
right.
Yeah. And Kerry,
Yes.
so for local traffic, that would allow Carla Bernard lives in that street, so that would allow her to park her car in her driveway along with the other residents who live on Gay Avenue, correct? That's
Yes.
local traffic. It's only for local traffic.
You live on that street, if you're going to a house on that street, my understanding.
But, I mean, my sense from Halifax is that, I drove down a street that said local traffic only. I was lost. But, it's not as though this is we're going to be asking city police to be checking people's driver's licenses. It's a sensibility more than it is an enforcement thing. It's basically, when you say local traffic only and the additional signage in Halifax, I think it's basically a matter of saying to vehicles, there's other people who are going to share the street with you. Please be mindful of them. It's not a license to people to play hockey in the street.
It's a deterrent not to turn down to that street. Like the street I almost turned down, saw the barrier that you showed, and I went down 2 streets further, and then I turned.
Yeah.
Were you lost?
I was diverted. How about that?
And I would say, and this is a larger topic for a larger plan, but if you think about downtown and you think about Sydney, Dorchester, King, those streets that people should be using to get around town, or are they streets that, in the larger scheme of things, people should be using to get to their house? I don't know the answer to that, but I think this is an interesting way of trying that out on a street that is clearly a local street.
Peter, do you know if there's any, would there be, Halifax have any information on kind of like how that works? Like, I'm just thinking if you close one street to local traffic, that does have implications on other streets in that community too. So people might be, if they're trying to get to the park, for instance, or they're trying to cut through to, say, Birchwood from University Avenue, and Gay Avenue is no longer an option, then that means you're potentially increasing traffic on surrounding streets. That would be a question that would probably come up at the committee level, and I would want to have a response to that, maybe from Halifax's experience, that they haven't found that, or that they find that it's a minimal effect, or...
I mean, I can certainly try and find that out. I think my response to that question, if it came up to me, would be, this is a great, relatively low impact, let's say short-term way of finding that out. I don't think we would be asking the committee and council to recommend that this be a permanent thing. I think we could recommend that it be tried out for the summer of 2020, and that we would look at maybe we take the Neil Vision cameras and we put them on the surrounding streets and we judge what the impact of it was. But I can certainly reach out to Halifax. I think that's a good way of making the case.
That's part of the background information.
Yeah.
So what timeline am I looking at here if we're trying to gather a few things?
The next Environment and Sustainability Committee meeting is July 28th. So any reports I would need completed by next Thursday, but there'll also be one in August as well.
And Ramona, the temporary closure of street has to go to another standing committee, which is Public Works or Police.
Okay.
So it has to go, there's a process. It just doesn't move from the standing committee for environment and sustainability. Street closures, I believe, falls under both Public Works and Police, the 2 standing committees.
So what we would probably do then is have it as a recommendation to the E&S standing committee to consider it, and then after they deliberate, to, if they were in support of it, to forward that recommendation to the street closures.
Yeah. And the background information, as you said, from Halifax or there are other jurisdictions doing this, not just Halifax. Ottawa is doing it also. So Halifax, Ottawa, these other municipalities would have processes that would allow this to happen or to take place.
Kerry, I could look into that part of it and feed that information to you if you'd like.
That would be great. And I'll see about communicating with the residents on that side of things. And then in terms of the recommendation itself, what should that look like? Or
Yeah, so there's basically like a cover page report that I can write if you provide me with the background that I can attach to that report.
okay,
Okay.
fine. Okay.
So is that something that is that a recommendation going to come from this committee once that background information is prepared? And do we, as a task force, need to meet again before that goes ahead, or can we just go forth on the basis of Joanne's motion?
I guess it depends on you, like how others on the committee feel. If they feel comfortable giving you the support to move ahead with that recommendation without a second meeting, or if you want to call a meeting to discuss the more finer details of that recommendation before it goes to ENS.
Yeah, or to provide more information. But you have WebEx meetings, so it could be organized just by going to the WebEx meeting or group meetings, or is it team meetings, to get that additional information. But the more information you have up front, I think it allows it to be a little more smoother going through the process.
And as I'm a person that dealing with the public works, me and Jason, is there, like, would we need to discuss anything with them as well, or? Yeah.
Just wait for the information to.
Okay.
And putting together that information will help any effort from you and Jason, Ramona, and myself.
Okay.
So, Philip, I think that's a good suggestion, that any further information to be shared with our committee, our task force, we can put on Teams. And if it flops, or, the information isn't positive, then, okay, well, withdraw the motion. Well, but I think because we've got community support and we've talked about this kind of thing, I'd like to see it work its way up if people can meet some timelines in there, and if it's not reasonable to meet the timelines, then we'll just do the best we can for this year and see what happens next year. But do you think, Carrie and Peter, if you just provide us with additional information on Teams, and then we can send it to Ramona, and Ramona, you can take it to your committee whichever date the information's ready?
I'm okay with that.
Yes. Get right on it.
Good.
Ramona, you okay with that?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Perfect. And lastly, an update on the Hillsborough Bridge.
I just requested that be added to the agenda just because it was just announced that they're going to make it happen this year, which was very exciting just on a personal note for us. But just to see if there was any communication with the city, and I know because obviously, as we already discussed tonight, that the approaches to the bridge are.
I sent out an email to Stephen Myers.
Oh, good.
But he hasn't gotten back to me. I basically just said we'd like some information, or with our committee, and to see kind of what was going on, because on the weekend he had put out a tweet stating that there was an issue where Stratford had said they had the plan, it's in place, it's all ready to go, and he basically stated there is no plan yet, we're still developing it. So I kind of wanted to get some information on that. I haven't heard anything. I asked him if I could get a brief 10 or 15 minute call with him just to kind of go over some of the specifics of it.
It came up in the legislature this afternoon during the estimates. And I forget who asked the question, but they responded that they would bring back the plans, the suggestions. I get it. It didn't appear as though there was a definite like plan, like this is what it's going to look like specifically yet. I think there's some ideas, but I don't know if it's. So I think it would be stay tuned.
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard too, because something I never thought about were the boarding to get on and off the bridge.
Yeah, being on the bridge will be the easy part. It'll be trying to get off.
Oh yeah, that's the most difficult part.
Yeah, it's a very important thing, and I think that needs to be an active transportation trail as well. Yeah. Saying that it's a cycling lane, I think that's going to cause a huge amount of issues, because when people don't feel safe, especially being on that bridge, because I know even walking on that bridge, I would not feel safe. So it needs to be an active transportation lane. It needs to be wide, and it needs to be promoted like that. Like the whole thing about, I know we have an active transportation committee and we talk about cycling a lot, but I really think the future is in active transportation trails. It just solves so many problems for people, as far as there's kind of a pecking order right now, and I think it takes some of that conflict away, and I think it's easier to develop too, to have those trails. So I'm looking forward to it, because that bridge is just terrifying.
Mr. Mayor, does that all jive with your understanding of the situation? The city hasn't received anything more than the rest of us have?
Yeah, the house, it looks like the house may be closing in the next couple of days, and Steve Myers is dipping into other sources of revenue or funds from the federal government to make this happen. And Ramona probably knows more about it, because Ramona, I think, are you not sitting on that committee with Brian Thompson?
I'm not a regular sitting member, but I have attended a number of times, and I really just was back at work today after a vacation. I did have a conversation with the consultant from CBCL, who I'm working with on the design of the bypass highway project. So it's my understanding that he'll also be working on the design of the Hillsborough Bridge project as well, which I was really pleased about, because those two projects will be connected in terms of, and my understanding of the project, and this is still kind of like preliminary information, is that the approaches on both sides, as well as the corridor itself across the bridge, are all within the scope of his design work. So it's not just the bridge piece, that he will also be designing sort of how you get off the bridge on the Charlottetown side and on the Stratford side. But the AT working group is meeting tomorrow, and I am going to be in that meeting tomorrow. Good. So I have a couple things I wanted to chat with them about the other project. But one of the things that I was hoping to get is like a little bit more publicly available information on the Hillsborough Bridge project. And if they're not ready, that's fine. But I did get a number of calls and emails today about people wanting more information, and I do have a bit of information, but I don't know if it's fully accurate. So I just want to be mindful of kind of sharing that until they've made some official statement on it.
So one other thing I'll just mention is, if I heard the term once, I heard it, I don't know, a zillion times today. The federal money, the federal infrastructure money, is for shovel-ready projects, which need to be executed in a short order. So while it may not be, the plan might not be definite today, I gather it will be definite. It will be fairly soon. What that looks like, I don't know, but just so you know.
I got that impression too, Heather, that it was going to be a quick turnaround and quick design.
So
and Heather, that money that federal funding will go to 2021. So
it's
so
just
the projects have to be in the queue as soon as possible, because it's not just Charlottetown, Stratford, Prince Edward Island; it's the whole country.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I think some of these funds will be going after that $3.3 billion from the ISEP, which is more about COVID follow-up or COVID, getting through the COVID pandemic. But Peter, Jason Jason, and Peter, I can follow up if Jason wants to give me a call. We can follow up tomorrow with the Minister of Transportation, Infrastructure and Energy's office about what the timeline is. But I'd like to wait to hear what Brian Thompson and the Active Transportation Committee for the province has to say.
No, that makes sense.
All right with you, Peter?
Yep, that's good.
So we'll just wait to hear from what happens with your meeting tomorrow, Ramona, and then I can follow up.
Okay.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
they've got a big agenda tomorrow. They've got a lot of stuff that they're working on. But that is a really engaged group. And I know, like, we've completed our formal application for the fund for the bypass perimeter project. I know they're reviewing a number of other projects as well. So I really feel like that group and that funding associated with it is really going to accelerate a lot of projects over the next 4 or 5 years. So I'm excited.
And do we have a final design for the Riverside pathway, active transportation pathway? Final design yet?
So we had our sort of 90% design review on phase 1, which is Murchison to St. Peter's Road. So we're very close on that.
Good.
I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a great trail.
Yeah, me too.
And eventually connected to Hillsborough Bridge, Stratford, and heading down to Wood Islands.
Yep, and it'll go right to the Confederation Trail too on Mount Edward. Yeah, so just on that project, I know this is not on the agenda, but the intent would be to have our tender for the construction, those documents out by the 1st of August, and then we are planning on constructing September, October. So,
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Not perfect timing. We did get a little bit delayed with COVID, but the intent will still be to have that phase of the project completed before the end of the year.
Great.
And I had 2 additional things I'd like to bring up under new business. Is that okay?
Sure.
One is I just wanted to provide some encouraging feedback. I noticed that I bicycle a lot to the Sobeys on University Avenue, and the bike rack there is of quite an old design, and basically if you stick your bike in it, your bike falls over. And so I phoned Jeff Jenkins, the manager of Sobeys, and I told him this, and he said, yes, I've known that for a long time. And I said the city has a bike rack incentive program that you can take advantage of, and he was very enthusiastic about that, and I connected him with Ramona's colleague, and he's going to pursue that. So I give that evidence, not only as evidence of the greatness of Sobeys, but more so that I think our consumer power as cyclists can go a long way. And that's how we got the bike rack in Home Hardware, and that's how we got the bike rack at Purity Dairy. So I would encourage you to all do some of the things.
You've been doing some great matchmaking for us, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I threatened them with withdrawing my business. So.
And you want us to shop at Sobeys and Home Hardware, right?
And at Purity Dairy, yes. The other thing I had, and I wondered, Ryan and Jason, whether you could bring this forward, because I had no success with a direct email to the Director of Public Works. The Riverside Drive Trail from the Irving intersection, it goes out past Riverview Country Market and that way. There are 2 or 3 areas along there, especially it's the entrance to the fertilizer plant. It's kind of the entrance to the fertilizer plant or to the plumbing supply place there, where there's quite a deep pothole, and it's kind of grown up there. It needs some maintenance, and there's been no maintenance that's been done for 2 cycling seasons now. So I wondered if they could give that some attention.
Peter, it's provincial.
Oh, is it?
That is, yeah. They built it. They have to maintain it. The issue is that they're slowly decommissioning the Riverside government garage.
Okay.
So, and then also, if you notice, Birch Hill Construction over in New Brunswick, Fredericton, New Brunswick, are doing all the directional drilling for the line that's going to the sewage plant, wastewater treatment plant.
Yes.
So you probably won't see much going on until that work is done.
Okay.
So they're almost done. There's just one more piece of the wastewater treatment facility line that has to go under the bridge, but I think everything else is now underground. It's all directional drilling. They didn't have to cut into the roads at all.
Right. Well, that's good. But that's good to know about that would explain why I haven't heard back from the city public works, because it's not their trail then.
Yeah. But Jason and I can bring it up when we follow up on this other issue with the active transportation pathway going across the bridge.
So the Riverside Drive Trail, as it exists now, that goes out to Murchison in the hospital, that's provincial. But is the new trail that Ramona is talking about, is that going to be provincial as well?
City.
Oh, that's city. Okay.
Correct, Ramona?
Yeah, I'm confused though on that, the Riverside Drive one, the existing section, because like it's a provincial highway, but my understanding was we built the AT path because the province hasn't typically done any AT, just like on St. Peter's Road, it's the same thing. So are we responsible for we're pretty responsible for the maintenance of that AT path, are we not? They're on the Riverside Drive.
I know they built it when they did the widening of. They did the two roundabouts.
Yeah.
So if I may be wrong, but if we own it,
and I might be wrong too. I'd have to look into that one.
Do you want to call Scott Adams tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll talk to him about it.
And maybe it is our responsibility, Peter, but I'm almost 100% sure they built it when they did the two roundabouts.
Well, and as you say, Mr. Mayor, if there is active maintenance and decommissioning of the garage and that kind of thing, and it makes sense to wait for a year to give that a fresh coat of asphalt or just to do some substantial repairs, and that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's a great pathway. It's we have to maintain it and take care of it.
Yeah.
So if we are responsible for it, the city will do it.
Yeah. And you could also shop at Riverview Country Market on your bicycle while you're out there.
And there's a Home Hardware out there too.
There is, yes.
And the PEI Liquor Commission.
If you need bulk. That's it for me, Ryan. Thank you.
Okay. And just before we adjourn, about next meeting, it's probably going to be WebEx again.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about in-person meetings again right now. Like, I know there's challenges, technology challenges sometimes with this online option, but it's still tricky because we have to allow ourselves to be open to attendees from the public. It seems to me simpler to stream it online and allow people to watch the meeting than it is to prepare for, could be 0 people, it could be 15 people, and not knowing how many it'll be, and having to set up in the lobby here for them to be able to watch and have the commissioner there and just maintain the social distancing. I've kind of opted to not go that direction, but I'm not sure how you folks are feeling about the online meetings.
But the live stream is also archival, so it's you can watch it anytime.
That's true also.
Yeah.
From my perspective, just in terms of integrating meetings into my family life in the evening, doing it by WebEx is, if we did it by WebEx for the rest of time, I'd be happy.
It's definitely Peter, did you say that's a yes?
I would say that's a yes.
He's an internet promoter.
I'm very happy with this format for now. It's a safety thing and a convenience, especially summer months, obviously. But I'm quite happy with this format.
And it also can incorporate different things, like you'll be able to, if you had the time, you could make your own video and play the video on here so everybody can see it, which is, you can probably do that at the meeting as well, but it's good to incorporate this kind of new technology, so it's good. Just wanting to confirm the date of the next meeting then.
Right.
So I have it as August 11th. Is that what other folks have?
That's what I had.
Okay. I have no problem with that day. It's my brother's birthday.
We can invite him along.
Yeah.
As a birthday present.
Yeah. We'll sing him happy birthday, Ryan.
Yeah. That's my brother. Yep. Well, so August 11th at 6 p.m. I'm assuming that's a Tuesday.
It is.
Okay. And so August 11th, 6 p.m. We'll see everybody here.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay
Thanks,
safe.
everybody.
Be smart. Stay apart.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.